By Her Own Design by Piper Huguley. This book was great. This book is my church book club book that we will be reviewing next week. And I cannot wait to hear what they have to say about this book because I thoroughly enjoyed this book. By Her Own Design is a biographical novel tracing the life of African-American fashion pioneer Ann Lowe, granddaughter of slaves who rose from Jim Crow, Alabama, to designing Jacqueline Kennedy's wedding dress, and yet remained largely uncredited. The story begins in 1918, follows her abusive early marriage, mentorships with her mother and grandmother, and her migration to Tampa and then New York City. Over many decades, she faced racism, personal tragedy, and professional erasure, even while draping high society in silk and lace. Now, this book, she grew up around her mother and her grandmother, and they taught her everything that she knows. She would make flowers that looked so real, even by the time she was 12. She ended up, this guy who claimed he knew her dad kept hanging around. Now, they said he was in his 40s. I don't know. But he messed around and talked her into marrying him because he was a tailor. And he needed someone to help him sew suits. In true fashion, he got her away from her mom and her grandmother, decided to not let her be near them unless her mom had a big commission. Her grandmother told her to drink a certain tea to keep her from getting pregnant because they did not want her to have any kids by this man. But she ended up being defiant and decided to have a child by him anyway. Named him Arthur. He was a very good son to her. After she started getting more recognition in Montgomery, her husband, I think that's where they were, in Montgomery. Her husband decided that he wanted her to move to Dothan, Alabama, to be near his folks. Well, that meant that she was losing all of her clients, which men do that. They will do that. And so she ended up going to his home. His mom told him, she was like, look, I had to get rid of his daddy. So if you want to make it, you're going to have to leave. And then guess what? She took the next thing out of Dothan, Alabama to Tampa. This white lady helped her out. I can't remember her name, but this lady was so kind to her. She gave her and her son somewhere to stay. She had like 3 girls. And she was sewing clothes for them. She was sewing clothes for the youngest one's doll. And it was just a beautiful situation. The lady actually encouraged her to go to New York City to go to design school because she said that if you get some credentials behind your name, you can charge more. She did. She was able to get Arthur's grandmother his paternal grandmother to keep him. And she did go through she went through racism at the school. I'm not going to share what happened, but she did. And actually, some of the things that she did at the school, I thought surely it was going to come back around later on in the book, but it didn't. But it was okay. It was okay because she ended up meeting Jacqueline Kennedy. She ended up making her dress. And she was being well honored throughout the industry because people always wanted their debutante dresses, wedding dresses, prom dresses. So here's the review. Huguley's storytelling is both intimate and sweeping. Ann's journey earns every ounce of respect. Absolutely. It's steeped in trauma, but propelled by resilience and artistry. The first half dives deeply into her childhood and early career, rich with emotional and historical detail. However, the later years, which include the renowned Kennedy Commission, feel briskier, like a curtain call after a full finale. Overall, it is a beautifully rendered tribute to a hidden figure in fashion history. 5 out of 5. I probably wouldn't purchase the book, but I have never heard of this lady before, and I'm glad that I was introduced to her from my church book club. I think by her own design. It was a very good book. Awesome for Black History Month. And if you're into historical history, African Americans historical history, this would be a perfect book for that. My final thoughts. By Her Own Design shines a vibrant tribute to perseverance, creativity, and legacies suppressed by systematic racism. It reminds me of how many Black women's stories remain unspoken. A moving read for history buffs, creative souls, and anyone intrigued by the power of art to transcend injustice. So if you decide you want to read this book, it's 384 pages. And if you decide to listen like I do, it is 13 hours. Loved it. Absolutely.